Alright, today I want to teach you how to tie what I call a pink fire bead worm. It's basically just a standard San Juan worm in pink with a fluorescent orange bead on it, and I usually put a tag, a flash on it just to spice it up a little bit. It's a really effective pattern, at least where I fish out here in Wyoming, but I'm sure it's effective pretty much anywhere. I know people have said they fish it down south and for all different kinds of reasons, so pretty nice bug. I'll show you some little tips and tricks to get this thing squared away pretty easy. First off, for chenille, I'm just using a fluorescent pink ultra chenille. Hook size, I'm using a Dairiki 125 size 12. It's a straight eye hook, but it's got a nice even bend to it, so the bead slips on there pretty easily. The beads for this sucker I've got them from Spirit River. They're hot beads, and hot orange is a 4mm bead. You can go bigger or smaller depending on your application, but because we're going to be tugging the chenille through that, the 4mm is probably the smallest you want to go, unless you're using midge, really small chenille. And then for thread, I'm using fluorescent orange ultra. This is a 210 denier. I usually use 140, but that's what I got today, is the fluorescent orange in 210. So to get this started, I'll show you a little trick about how to get the chenille through that bead. You know, the chenille comes on this nice 2-inch card, and most aquatic worms are going to be in that 2-inch length or range. So when you pull this chenille off, you can see that there's natural bends in it, and that's just where you want to cut it, and that gives you a nice 2-inch piece of chenille to work with. What you want to do is you want to grab one of these bobbin threaders, just a wire bobbin threader that you can get pretty much any fly shop, and use that to thread the chenille through the bead. So I'm just going to take my bead here and slide it on my bobbin threader there, just like so. And when I take my piece of chenille, I'm just going to put the tip of it in there. See if I can get it in the camera here. Just slide it in there, and then slide that bead over the top of it and just pull it straight through, and you'll get that bead right there on the chenille. You know, I'm usually tying a dozen of these at a time, so I'll put all the beads on first before I even get started with the hook. Now the other thing is if you're using a different kind of material, so say you want to use something like pearl core braid, which is pretty common for worm applications, you're probably not going to want to put the bead on first if you try to slide it through, and you're going to need a bigger bead, okay? And I'll do another video about using this stuff with beads, because you can really, this stuff has flash around the core of it, and so it gets real torn up if you try to slide that thing on with the bead already in place. So I'll do another video on that stuff. So you've already got your bead on your chenille, so I'm just gonna thread it on the hook here, small side forward, and it'll slide real easy onto this hook. And go ahead and secure it in the vise. Now what I like to do is pull the chenille back a little bit so it's not sticking too far out the front, and just slide it out of the way for a second. Now to get this thing started, we want to create a little bit of a thread base toward the eye of the hook, just to have something to jam this sucker onto. With this 210, you have to do a few wraps to make sure that tag is secured. And I'm just going to build this up a little bit. This helps to protect the eye there from that bead sliding over the top of it, and it gives it a base to jam that bead on. So you're just going to tie that on there real quick and finish it off. Now you want to size your chenille for how far up on the front you want that thing to go. whatever your preference is. Once that's in place, hit that little thread you put there on the front with a shot of Zap-A-Gap or whatever you like to use, and then just jam that bead onto it so that the chenille is on top of the hook and the bead is jammed up against there. You'll notice there's a little bit of space there, and that helps protect the eye, because when you start getting glue and stuff on here, you don't want that chenille to get glued on over the eye of your hook, just like that. And then the chenille has a little bit of memory, so if you want to just kind of bend it forward to get it out of the way, you can try to do that a little bit here. Next is you're going to start your thread again, but you're going to start it behind the bead this time, and just kind of work around that back end there. Now what I like to do is create a thread base all the way, even starting down the bend of this hook, and then I'm going to tie in a little tag of flash. You can use whatever you want. I've been using a lot of purple Flashabou, but today that Flashabou is kind of delicate stuff, it seems like. So today I'm actually going to use some silver crystal flash. Just whatever your preference is, whatever scrap you got laying on your tying desk there is probably fine. I don't really notice much of a performance difference. Just give it, I mean, this thing is already blazing in the water, and so you don't really need much flash, but it's just a little thing I like to do to give it a little sparkle in the water and give it that extra little look. So bring your thread back forward after you've tied in that little tag of flash, and then what you're going to do is you're going to secure down the chenille right behind the bead, and you want your thread to be right up against that bead when you're wrapping this on. And I always pinch it to make sure that that chenille stays in place on top, and it takes about 20 wraps. And what you're doing is you're trying to build up that thread right behind that bead so that it is secure in place and it doesn't move around too much there. That way this bead doesn't slide around on your hook, especially when this thread gets wet. Things start compressing a little bit and moving around. You just want kind of a little lump of thread back there to secure that bead in place. Once that's done, just pull your chenille out of the way, cross your thread over. I'm losing focus here. And then you can finish going down, back down to the bend of the hook here. Now once you've got that, your thread back down to the bend, you just want to pull your chenille tight, make sure it stays on top of the hook, cross your thread over, maybe do 2 wraps, and that's it. Get out your whip finish tool. I have a pretty small whip finish tool, but I'm still able to get around this number 12 hook and just do you know, the standard 3 or 4 whip finishes there to secure this in place. It's really nice if you have a rotary vise. You can just turn this thing over, hit it with a couple daps of Zap-A-Gap just to get that thread nice and secure and hard. And then just like you'd finish any other worm, just hit it with a flame there, burn those ends up a little bit just to give it that sealed off pointed look. And there you go, a pink fire bead San Juan worm with a little bit of a flash tag there on the back end. Great little bug, works great. You can do this as a lead fly, you can run it behind something bigger if you want, but this thing rolls right around the bottom, sinks deep, and gets a lot of looks. So give it a try and let me know what you think.